Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Week Ahead News Show. This is episode 36, starring Liam and my friend Tommy.
Thanks for having me again. It's great to be back. Crazy to believe we're already on episode 36. And it's also crazy to believe we actually do have a positive news story to discuss today. Out of the US Supreme Court, no less. Good to be back. Good to be talking about the news.
Yep, let's get right into it. Once again, it's episode 36. It's currently November 10th, 2025. For weather, I'm going to be using my um, app on my phone real quick today. Was for a low of 26, high of 34, 95% chance of snow. Tomorrow, 60% chance of snow. 24 low, 37 high. Wednesday, 33 low, 44 high. No snow, but cloudy. Thursday, we'll get the sun back, 34 and 47, partly cloudy. Friday, partly cloudy as well, 32, 50, getting a little bigger. Saturday, 30 and 54, so we get a little hotter. Rain Saturday, 50%. Excuse me. Sunday, 75% chance of rain, low of 42, high of 58. Next Monday, cloudy, low of 36, high of 42. Going to be cold again next week. Getting a little bit warmer. Air quality's been good. Rain today. There's been about less than an inch of snow. Tomorrow, we'll be getting another less than an inch of snow, so nothing too crazy. This is light snowfall. Probably won't stick too well. Humidity 87%, pretty high with this snow. Let's see what the moon's like. It's at morning gibbous. Um, Illumination at 62%. Moon set is at 12:43. Moonrise 10:12. Both of these p.m. Next full moon 24 days. It's about sunrise. First light today was at 6:35 p.m. Sunrise was at 7:05 a.m. Sorry, both of these are a.m. Sunset was at 5:08 p.m. Whew, last light 5:37 p.m. Getting off work and it's dark. Total daylight 10 hours and 2 minutes. Oh my god, we're getting to the dark times. Dark ages. December will be the worst. Actually, I think either December or January will be the worst. We'll have to see. It will not be fun. Yeah, it actually looks like it's going to be this December. Tommy will be going over stocks for the last 5 days. We have today's stocks above us. Looks like small gains percentage wise in the green. And weather below us.
As will be shocking to nobody, we have basically the stocks are the same as last week. The last couple of weeks we've been sticking around the sort of incremental loss, incremental gains sort of land. Dow's up 220 points, a little less than half a percent. S&P's up 43 points, a little more than half of a percent, and Nasdaq is up 68 points, which is about a third of a percent. So pretty much the same as we've been seeing for the past couple weeks.
Oh, sorry, I was still muted. These are very small gains for the past 5 days for last week. So kind of like we saw last week during the week ahead, we only had less than percent gains to a percent gain. So not big gains as the government shutting down. We'll go right into a funny topic. Make sure you drop a like. We have our Facebook below. Follow us on there. Like our socials on there. That helps us out with the algorithm. Same with liking us on here on YouTube. Subscribing as well. Ringing the bell helps. A funny topic will be about how Farmington Fire Levy passed by one vote. Um, the levy was a 2.9 mil operating levy for the Farmington Township Fire Department in Farmington Township, Trumbull County, Ohio. It passed us by one vote, 152 in favor of and 151 opposed. The results are unofficial and a recount could change the outcome. Better watch out for. It doesn't even matter anymore. It just slips. I guess how they circle how well you circle in. Better not be outside that bubble. If they're going to be recounting and looking at them. Details of levy and purpose. The levy is the levy is for a continuous period of time, no expiration date. If approved, the levy is projected to raise about $200,000 per year for the department. Tax impact: property owners in the township would pay roughly $102 a year each. $100,000 home appraisal value for basically that type of home starting in 2027, which really isn't too bad for me. $100 a year increase for fire. If they need it, not that bad, especially in a township. The existing free levies passed in 1982, 1983, and 1986, which raised about $72,000 per year, will be eliminated if a new levy passes. This means new money is about $127,000 annually, which is good to see. The department's current budget is about $371,000 a year. With a new levy, it will increase it to about $500,000. The department has 25 part-time firefighters who are cross-trained as EMTs and paramedics. A lot of fire departments do that nowadays. The department call volume is rising with 701 alarms so far in 2025 and expected to be above 800 for the year end. For a township, that's pretty big. Cities get about around 2,000 a year, 2,000 to 3,000. Excellence outcome considerations: because the margin of victory is so small by one vote, one provisional ballot remains to be counted. If it's against the levy, the measure would fail. That's kind of crazy. And it also kind of shows how important, voting locally it matters. Automatic recount laws for local tax issues, margins of 0.5% or less trigger an automatic recount. Here the margin is about 0.66%, so it wouldn't automatically qualify for a recount because there's only less votes, 151. But a provisional ballot could still change it. Reactions and some trustees' comments. Trustee David Stevens called the result crazy and expressed relief that the levy passed. Fire Chief Jonathan Bland emphasized the necessity of the levy, citing inflation and risk by operating deficit by 2027 or 2028 without it, which is no good. Definitely want to keep a fire department. So, happy to see it pass. Hopefully it still does with this provisional. Hopefully it's a yes. I always vote yes on most levies. If it's for fire, if it's for schools, special needs, the elderly, parks. So, good to see this one pass. Kind of crazy, like I said before, it passed by one vote. What do you think, Tom?
Pop quiz for you, Leo. So, what happens? What is an acceptable procedure for breaking a tie in an election when if someone's running for mayor, for instance? Do you have any guesses?
Do you make everyone re-vote?
They flip a coin.
That's lit. I like it.
So
that's respectable.
So in this is a levy situation that requires a majority of voters, but in a system where someone's running for mayor or state rep, where it's just simply a plurality of voters are needed. There have actually been local situations, not recently that I know of, but I know in Lordstown, one of their village government, their equivalent of a mayor, I don't know, probably about 10 or so years ago, won by a coin flip. It was a tied vote and they flipped a coin and so it's just absolutely crazy. Just wanted to share that as well. No, I think this story it's funny in the respects of, you just how close the election is for this small local issue. And it's also kind of crazy to see how much weight this one outstanding provisional ballot has, because my understanding of it is, so since this is a levy, and it needs a majority approval to pass, as the article mentioned, if the provisional ballot is for the levy, passes, obviously. If it's against it, it doesn't pass. But if it is against it, the levy wouldn't pass, but then it would go into that automatic recount territory as well. So, depending on this provisional ballot, if it's against it, it may trigger this recount. If it's for it, the levy passed. It's just sort of crazy to see how much weight is given to this one ballot. And it's also probably it's somewhat likely that the person that did this provisional ballot never goes into the Board of Elections to cure it or fix whatever deficiency that was with their that stopped them from voting non-provisionally. So crazy to see how much weight that one vote has, and it really just does show the importance of getting out there and voting for local issues. But it certainly is funny that this one vote, this one outstanding provisional ballot, and the fact that the levy did pass by one vote. I did find that sort of amusing.
Agreed, Tommy. It is. And also looking outside, this snow kind of is sticking to the road, so it makes you drive safe out there. That's it for me on that topic. You can go into a national one if you want, Tommy.
Yeah, so uh, as you know, and as our viewers have known, we've been covering the government shutdown over the course of what is it, over a month now, right? So we're in the longest shutdown in U.S. history right now, and there seems to maybe be a resolution in play. So late last night, the Senate cleared an initial hurdle for a funding measure that is designed to potentially reopen the shutdown the end of this week. The government has been operating without full funding since October 1st, as I said, making it the longest shutdown in U.S. history. Excuse me. The compromise would restore funding to federal agencies that were affected when the funding lapsed. And the deal would extend federal funding through January 30th, 2026, and it would fund SNAP, the SNAP through at least September 30th of the following year. Um, and it places temporary restrictions on the president's ability to fire federal employees until January 30th under the current deal. So the deal was brokered by moderate Democrats, notably Senators Maggie Hassan, Senator Sheehan. They are both from New Hampshire, Democrats from New Hampshire, and independent Angus King from Maine. All of this is happening in the background of where 50% of Americans, they blame the Republicans for the shutdown versus only 43% blaming Democrats. The deal still needs full passage by the Senate and approval by the House of Representatives, but Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is moving quickly. Um, and so, yeah, so financial implications, the extension keeps the government on course to add approximately $1.8 trillion per year to its $38 trillion debt under current projections. And that's something, that the Republicans, like to beat their horn about the national debt, that but in the meantime, they are pushing through this spending measure that adds to the national debt in order to subsidize tax cuts for the rich. So, implications, certainly there's going to be some immediate relief, hundreds of thousands of federal workers who've been unpaid, low-income Americans affected by the SNAP disruptions and travelers facing cancellations, due to um, the lack of air traffic controllers, they'll see improvements. And, long term, it places SNAP in sort of in a more safe position, um, to prevent it from being used as a political sort of bargaining chip against the Democrats at the expense of the needy. So, my thoughts on this are complex. So, for first thing, I guess I want to say is Democrats. Democrats had a very successful election last week. We won in um, Virginia, we won in New Jersey. The endorsed Democratic candidate, Mondami, won in New York City. We essentially, as a party, we swept pretty much everything. Statewide here in Ohio, we reelected, Democratic mayors in our major um, cities here in Ohio. So it does seem, and public polling shows that 50% of Americans blame Republicans for the shutdown versus 43% of Democrats. So it seems to me to be a bit odd that these moderate Democrats are caving and giving in and being willing to work um, with Republicans to resolve this issue when all the other side has done, all the Republicans have done is have refused to negotiate with Democrats. They didn't even call the House of Representatives back into session. So it just seems a bit strange to me that these moderate Democrats are reaching out to the Republicans when predominantly when Republican leadership, both in the Senate, in the House, and of course the president, were not willing to um, negotiate with Democrats in good faith about this healthcare fight that they were waging to try to preserve the subsidies for those on the Affordable Care Act. So it's just a bit strange to me that this is happening. Like I feel like we should be on a high point right now. We won all these elections. We we seemingly are gaining some sort of political capital as the chaos of the Trump administration just keeps coming through. Now, certainly, I'm under no illusions, and I've heard, some U.S. senators talk about this. It must, it's so hard. It's, locally here, for instance, we have firefighters at the air base that aren't being paid. The air traffic controllers aren't being paid. People are losing their SNAP benefits. There's absolutely very bad negative consequences to continuing this shutdown. But I think the fact remains is that the Democratic base and the American people want a Democratic Party that is willing to fight for them and fight for their values. And this just seems like a poorly thought out retreat from a potentially winning fight. So that's all I sort of have to say about this. Again, I understand, how hard it is, to be able to look someone in the eye and say, you're only going to get half your SNAP payment, because, I'm not willing to reopen the government until, people have their full healthcare subsidies. Like, I understand how difficult that must be. But the fact remains is, we are not living in ordinary times right now. We have a president and a Republican Party that wipes their ass with the Constitution, so it just seems a bit misguided to give up this fight after these large victories, particularly in a time right now of such chaos and Democratic backsliding. So that's what I have to say. What do you think, Liam?
I agree, Tommy. Kind of like what we talked about last week. Republicans needed to negotiate. Seemed like it was more Democrats negotiating, but Republicans still talked with them. So I'm happy they got something done. It's interesting the poll. 50 versus 43. Most Americans don't really kind of believe in the whole delegation and politics, especially not anymore. How divided it is, and what we've seen from a lot of these politicians. But whenever you actually you're saying use starving people as a barter tool, it's just kind of crazy. So I'm happy they're back together. The band's back together again, but it just sucks that. And we don't, you know what I mean? It's nice that it does help SNAP, but does this affect the Medicare, Medicaid, that the Democrats were holding off against? Because I couldn't read that in here or find out.
No, so the only thing that, the initial fight was over Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare subsidies, for people that get their healthcare on the exchange. And I haven't seen any. The only thing I've seen about that was that there might be a promise of a potential vote for the subsidies. So no, there's from as far as I know, to my knowledge, there is nothing in this quote unquote compromise deal that addresses the root cause of why this shutdown happened, which was Republicans wouldn't negotiate with Democrats because Democrats were trying to preserve people's health care. Mm-hmm. So at best, my knowledge is that this is just a promise of a future vote, but we give up all the leverage now.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit strange.
Mm-hmm. My mom's saying, like I say, she works with individuals with disabilities who are having issues finding food for them. And it kind of is hard because it's not as easy as go to a food bank when they don't have a car, or if you hire someone or one of their employees does it, you can't really be waiting in the food bank all day, because we've been seeing all over Ohio these food banks and this place people handing out food, long waits, long lines, because there's a lot of people on SNAP, especially in Ohio. So sad to see. There has to be something being done from the state And we're kind of seeing that, the feds are trying to block a lot of that help from the state, at least money wise. So it's crazy how it's just going back and forth and all this BS Trump's trying to do. I'm happy they're back together, and hopefully that's easy.
And
But like this time wasted affects a lot of people. They needed food, November 1st, and it's the 10th now. So go on.
yeah, it's just crazy, like, so the Democrats, they started waging this fight over healthcare, and the Republicans were really like, well, we're going to starve our own people then. You know what I mean? Like, that's really effectively what they did. You know, the Democratic Party waged this principal fight over healthcare, and the Republicans said, we don't like this fight. We want to take people's healthcare away, and in order for us to get our will, we'll just starve our own people, and that's what's crazy. The senators and the reps that voted that allowed these draconian measures to be taken place with funds for SNAP not being sent out. They have some people on SNAP voted for them.
Probably, I bet.
And the Republican reps are saying, I'll kill my voters. I'll starve them, because I want to be part of the crew that takes away people's health care. And it's just sad that we caved to that.
Agreed. Yeah.
Shame on the Republicans. Shame on the Republicans for waging this war against SNAP and people's basic needs, and shame on them for waging this war against their health care. It's absolutely disgusting. So that's all I sort of had to say on that. Do you have anything else you want to add, Liam?
No, I'm good. I agree. It sucks. Like these people ain't gonna get return on investment. Where's my fig? Like they call in the mob days, or their percentage for that money lost. But we'll keep talking about it. The history books will remember that one. So, and we'll see what keeps happening with all this crap. So we'll have to see.
It's definitely a low point in American history. It's definitely a low point.
Yeah,
for sure.
With everything else, for sure, man. Our next topic I can go into real quick. Make sure you stay warm, guys. The snow's looking crazy. It's still on the road. Make sure you drop a like if you're enjoying the content. Is our election results. Local election results. A lot of Tribune you can look up on there. First off, we'll be going with covering Niles, with encumbrance winning. Former council member returns. Niles City Council at Large, Award 1. At-large seats, we had 3 of them. Encumbrance, Michael Lastic and Jimmy Julian re-elected. Challenger, Edward D. Stredney claimed preferred spot. Vote shares with Lastic at 33, Stredney at 30, Julian at 29, trailing Geo. Oh my god. Kroenig at 9%.
It's not even worth trying to say right. It's Geo.
That's a big word. Ward 1 Democrat, Todd Wendell, incumbent, won roughly with 76% versus Tina Collins at 24%. With key takeaways, continually favored, a former council member, Stredley, has returned, bringing some more challenges, but largely maintaining the status quo. Sorry, bringing some change, but largely maintaining the status quo, because 2 out of 1 changed. Sorry, 2 out of 3 changed, so 2 versus 1. Warren voters kept council largely the same, with Warren City Council at large and wards 1, 5, and 7 up. At large contestants, 3 seats, incumbents Helen Hucker and Michael O'Brien, both Democrats re-elected. Newcomer Greg Fum secured the 3rd spot. Is actually say his last name? Fum. Ward results. First ward, independent incumbent Todd Johnson re-elected with 60% over Joseph Valamont. 7th ward, incumbent Ron White Sr. held his seat with about 70%. 5th ward, for notable upset, newcomer Michael Sherdick defeated incumbent Tiffany Stanford with 63% of the vote. Key takeaways, predominantly continency. Oh my god, that word keeps coming up. I'm going to die. Continency. I can't even say that word right now. Vote 1 ward saw change. Continuity, thank you. Vote 1 ward saw change. Voters generally opted for experience in most seats. Michael Sherdick's has a lot of experience, so that makes sense. And I think that, kind of like Niles as well. 2 out of 3 stay the same. Gerard, new faces joined council in 26 with Gerard City Council at large in second ward. 3 at large seats were up. Newcomers Todd Littell got 34% and Wes Snyder got 31%. Won 2 out of 3 seats with incumbent Lily Martuccio retaining her position at 28%. Writing candidate Mike Costarella garnered 7%. Let's go, Mike. I always see him on Facebook doing a lot of stuff for Gerard. Always talking. He's always up at council meetings as well. Pretty sure I don't know if he works for the city, but he might. Don't quote me on that. Second ward, newcomer James Clark defeated Republican Dan Cusimano. Oh, I said that right. Camuso, 65% versus 35%. Sorry, just another old draw Italian name popping in my head. Other seats, several incumbents ran unopposed. Example of First Ward Keith Schubert, Third Ward John Moliterno, and Fourth Ward Thomas Grumley. Fourth Ward, my guy. Let's go. Key takeaways. Actually, I lied. No, it is, yeah. Key takeaways, more change than the other 2 cities, significant new representation at large in the second ward, though most at large still includes an 8-year veteran of Lily, like we said with Todd Littell and Snyder getting in there. That really are the 2 new guys. Comparative observations across the 3 cities. Trend is continuity versus change. Now's strongly stayed the same with minimal change. Warren mostly the same with a targeted upset with Michael Strodick. Gerard more substantial change. Like I said, 2 out of 3 changed instead of 2 out of 3 staying, especially at large and ward level for the at large seats. Incumbents fared well overall, suggesting local electorates favored known quantities in many seats. Newcomers gaining ground, particularly in Gerard with 2 out of 3, like I said, at large, and in Warren's 5th ward. Party demographics, while local labels matter less, Democrats appear strong in Warren and Niles. Gerard's at-large wins were all Democrat nominees or non-challenged seats, so we were going to get Democrats anyway, but we pushed them up there. Implications for policy and governance. In Niles and Warren, likely policy same and lesser disruption. In Gerard, fresh voices may bring in new policies with our downtown revitalization going on right now, home repair grants, community development. Also a lot of talk with economic development at the lake, as articulated by Littell and Snyder, and Steiner, and especially with Littell's experience, that should help out as well. Vote behavior, local content, so important of ward level races. Even when upset with Warren's 5th again, can still shift representation in a city council dominated by incumbents. These 3 election outcomes reflected a mixed landscape in Trumbull County, from stable leadership in Niles, slight shifts in Warren, and more pronounced change in Gerard. They offer insight to how local electorates value both experience and fresh representation, and suggest that even small changes in the council might influence local agenda setting in 2026 and how cities go on from now. What was your take on these, Tommy?
It was quite an election day. Turnout proved to be higher both in Mahoning and Trumbull counties than the respective directors predicted when they were given their famous turnout predictions of the newspaper. They voter turnout did exceed expectations in both Mahoning and Trumbull counties, albeit it was still abysmal. It was about like 3 in 10 people, 3 in 10 registered voters, decided to go out and vote. Specifically though, I just really just I guess all I really would like to say is they have a lot of good people that are got reelected, got elected for the first time. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how the new councils, how the new various councils, various boards, trustees, etc., go on to represent their constituents. Yeah, so not really too much to say about this. The results largely, speak for what they are. Although I was happy to see that the turnout did exceed expectations, even though the expectations were at the bottom of the barrel. So not too much to say about this. Another election down. Many more to go. Next year we're going into that critical midterm election. So things are only going to get more crazy. So, yep.
Agreed. Even though we have low turnout now, probably because of the economy, people are working their butts off. They don't really like the government right now. So it'll be interesting. My mom was also saying, very good, before we go into our, national topic too, tomorrow is Veterans Day. I shout out to all the veterans who served and protect our country from everything in our history, from all that fascism, all that communism from back in the day. Thank you for defending us. I really love that. Um,
Thank you to all of our veterans.
I'm excited because I always love Memorial Day, and now I'll always have the Indy 500 to get hammered at for Memorial Day. Another good day to remember all that past serving us. But same for Veterans Day. A lot of veterans in our lives who pass out of service, in service, still think about tomorrow. So there's an event going on in Warren. I'll be there. Should be a good time. At Robin's Feeder at 7. Doors open at 6. So make sure you tell a veteran thank you. I know, like when I was at Walmart last week, there was a veteran there, so I gave him some money. Probably seen him at grocery stores for the last like month. So yeah, enjoy your benefits if you're a veteran. You get a free haircut, go to Denny's, get free food. You can look it up online. A lot of benefits you can get. So definitely appreciate that. Thank you for serving again. And Tommy will be going into national topic 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to all of our veterans out there that served. So this is the good news I was referring to. Supreme Court rejects long shot effort to overturn same-sex marriage ruling. Woo! Go to hell, Kim! Woo!
Let's go.
Okay, got that out of my system. Okay. Um, okay. So the Supreme Court declined to hear a case that sought to overturn the landmark 2015 decision of Obergefell v. Hodges, which legalized same-sex marriage across the United States. I remember the day that happened and like just being like so happy. Like I was still living with my mother and you know in my room. I was still in high school. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
you
this
were,
is some
yeah.
crazy positive history changing news. So yeah. So the petition came from Kim Davis, boo, a former Kentucky clerk who had been sued for denying marriage licenses to same-sex couples. So those that don't know Kim Davis, her argument is, I'm the county clerk, and even though all I literally was doing was having my name appear on a marriage certificate with two people of the same sex, that somehow violated her religious freedom rights. Just your name being printed on there. So anyway, there's a long there's a long, procedural posture as it comes to Kim Davis, but essentially, she refused to do it, and then she got ordered by a court to do it. Then she
Hmm.
still refused to do it.
So
So then
that
they
would be
changed
like
the laws
that'd be
down
like
south
me,
so no
Tommy.
name appears.
That'd be like me as the county auditor being like, I'm not putting my name on the gas pumps. I'm not inspecting the gas
Yeah,
pumps. I'm
exactly.
not
That's
doing it. I'm an environmentalist. It's against my
yeah.
religion.
So this is the type of person we're dealing with here, Kim Davis. We're dealing with someone who is fundamentally a religious nut job. That doesn't really, I don't really know what else to say.
That's crazy.
You know,
Hmm.
uh, so she wouldn't do this. She refused a court order, way back in the day, and then she got held in prison for 6 days, as you should when you refuse a court order. You know what I mean? But then, the religious right, just like, oh my God, they're putting this Christian woman in prison, even though she's defying a lawful court order. So, anyway, so she pretty much like exhausted like a lot of her like legal challenges to this. So then she went to, well, I'm just going to challenge Obergefell, the case that started it all, the case that originated the constitutional right to marry someone of the same sex, which is a case that was correctly decided and well thought out and well reasoned. But she exhausted all of her remedies, so she started attacking the actually fundamental holding in that landmark case. So today, The United States Supreme Court said, no, we don't want to hear that. We don't want to listen to your arguments, on why we should overturn Obergefell, which is fantastic news because that means that that means that the conservative Republican justices will not have the opportunity to take away people's constitutional rights. One more thing about Kim Davis. So she was actually like in one of her lawsuits, the people that sued her, to issue their marriage license, they actually received a judgment against Kim Davis for like 200 and some, 300 some $1,000. So now
Nice.
that's going to go back down to the lower court, and they're going to try to collect on that judgment. So get your checkbook ready, Kim.
Yep.
Get it out.
Can't buy
So
a house. Got to
anyway.
sell some land. Gonna be fun.
Yeah. So this is some positive news today. Of course, I'm always going to be concerned about any sort of fundamental constitutional right that people have right now, especially with this United States Supreme Court. But for the time being, and for the immediate future, the constitutional right to marry someone of the same sex remains intact. And Kim Davis, who is just a bigot, a religious bigot, she lost, and that's a positive thing for this country and for the rule of law. Mm-hmm. So overwhelmingly good news today out of the United States Supreme Court, which is something I pretty much never say.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So what do you think, Liam?
Amazing to see. It says here on our notes, though, I wanted to cover real quick. One Justice Clarence Thomas, according to Politico, has openly called for reconsideration of Obergefell, but others did not join.
Yeah.
That's kind of good. Is it kind of like just... it says like a conservative 6-3 majority. Is it something that like they actually voted on, or is it something they just talk about and see if they want to decide?
So the way it works is attorneys submit something called a writ of certiorari to the United States Supreme Court. Okay, or the writ of certiorari. So and that is it's a request. It's a request for the United States Supreme Court to hear your case, because the United States Supreme Court on appeal doesn't really have to hear anything. They can choose what they hear and what they don't hear. Mm. So a majority of the justices have to agree to accept the writ of certiorari to hear the case, and then issue, oral arguments, briefings, and issue an opinion. Yeah. So Kim Davis's attorney sent her writ up, and a majority of the Supreme Court justices, and it is a conservative majority in totality on the court, a majority of the justices said, we're not going to hear this case. So therefore, the old Obergefell case, which was a Supreme Court case, that stays the law.
And will we ever know who voted? Like who voted, yes, or is it all secret?
No, it's private. It's all private. So like the only reason why, like it says that in our notes that Thomas, said he's called for it. When they overturned Roe v. Wade, abridged by Planned Parenthood v. Casey, mm-hmm. and they overturned that with Dobbs. Clarence Thomas wrote this crazy ass concurring opinion where he's like, I hate everybody. You know what I mean? He's like, I want to overturn like every right. Presumably he voted.
Things I want to get rid of.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So presumably he voted to hear this case. But it's all behind closed. The court is not democratic. It's a court. Like we don't have any right to know what they're thinking. We only know their votes when the cases are big, and like it's like overturning Roe v. Wade or voting for legal gay marriage. That's when we know what people vote for. Yeah. When they issue their final opinions on the merits, it will say like, Justice Jackson, Sotomayor, Kagan, dissent. Justice Roberts, Alito and Thomas and Gorsuch write for the majority. So you can tell the votes after a final opinion, but not like this.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Tommy, for explaining that. Yeah, I'm happy for it. Having that
Yeah,
protection
no.
against legal gay marriage is awesome. Something that I feel like is in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. So happy to see them concrete that bad
Oh yeah, I
boy.
mean the Constitution. It says like no state shall deny any citizen within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. So if you're giving, if a man and a woman can get married, and a man and a man and a man and a man can't get married, or a woman and a woman can't get married, I think that just based on the plain text of the equal protection clause, I think
Tommy,
it's authoritative. So
you know,
very
you know,
good.
people are going to use that to marry their robots. But we'll talk about that later.
Oh God,
They're not human, so
we'll
hopefully,
cross that bridge when we come to it.
yeah, hopefully, Supreme Court don't rule on that. Maybe they will one day. I wouldn't be surprised. All right, local topic two. It's about commissioners expect to cut some 2026 budget requests. This is from a Tribune. The commissioners, Trumbull County, have concluded department's 2026 budget request presentations. Most departments asked for increases after the cuts they received this year. The commissioners decided after the upcoming budget process, as for hard part, needing to crunch numbers and decide what funding can realistically be provided. There's recognition that many requests include some fat or non-essential items. Tough choices loom. Departments with moderate to stable requests. First off is the coroner's office. Wonder why people always be dying around here. Dr. Lawrence D'Amico requested less than 2% than the last year. Reasons: prior investment, software, cooler have reduced costs. Clerk of Courts Randy Law requested the same budget as the 2025 year despite plans to hire a part-time employee. He noted younger staff costs are lower. True. The Building and Vehicle Maintenance Department asked to maintain current operations. Capital projects would require more funds. Department seeking increases. The Sheriff's Office proposed a funding increase of about $2 million over its 2025 budget. Reasons include 20% increase in jail administrations over the past 3 years. Wonder why that is. Rising costs for inmate food. Wonder why that is. Staffing of medical unit. I can keep going. Elimination of state-funded Marine Patrol with a negative $32,000 a year impact. The Board of Elections requested roughly $200,000 more than for 2026 than they received in 2025. They point to a statewide election next year, more ballots, more poll workers. The Treasurer's Office also asked for an additional $287,000 in 2026. They plan to introduce auto pay payment plans for delinquent taxes, but don't plan new hires. Good to see. But that's also county taxes, a little different than city. Financial constraints and commissioner perspectives. The county is operating under tight budget conditions. Last year's budget had cuts, and the reserve is under pressure. The reserve fund is under pressure. Commissioner Denley Malloy remarked that while many departments know the situation, some still asked for items we know we will not be able to provide. Matt Malloy also questioned salaries and staffing in certain departments. Examples are courts and dispatch compared to the stress levels of job scope. So maybe some departments need to get paid more for the stress levels. Kind of good to see that, but once again, you need to give them proper money. Next steps and timelines. Commissioners will now review all requests, propose cuts of funding levels, and prepare to draft for 2026 budgets. Departments are expect trimming of requests or being asked to live within or below their 2025 budgets. Implications and key takeaways. Some departments that requested no increase or even a decrease may gain an advantage in their budget negotiations. Departments seeking large increases are facing an uphill battle, given constrained resources and commissioner scrutiny. Questions about staffing, overtime, contract obligations, and equipment costs are significantly reoccurring themes. Kind of see that in local cities and townships as well. The outcome will affect service levels, staffing decisions, and potentially capital improvement projects across the county, especially with less funds from the federal government. We're kind of going to see that same thing with this year. Same thing happen next year in 2026. How do you feel about this, Tommy?
You know, we talked about sort of the budget issues earlier in the year, and just to quickly like recap, I think just like broadly speaking, people should get into government to provide services to people. So when when our elected representatives, seemingly, are trying to, race to the bottom, to conserve as many resources as possible, while it's certainly understandable to do that in order to avoid, raising taxes. It raises some eyebrows for me, because, at the end of the day, being in government, I think conveys a certain sense of responsibility to provide services to people.
Yep.
Police, fire, take care of the animals, take care of the elderly, the mentally ill, all of those different things. And when the budget constraints become so crazy that the fundamental purpose of government becomes frustrated, it raises some eyebrows to me. But that's largely a repeat of what I've said in the past. But um, the big takeaway is, we had a lot of budget constraints here in Trumbull County this year. And it sounds like there's gonna be more of the same for next year. But next year, that crazy property tax petition thing, will be circulating around more. Very well, maybe on the ballot. So if that passes, um, but budgets, at the county, but particularly, with our local schools, will be even further tightened. So that the sort of the long-term trajectory that we may be on as a state, and locally, where we're having all these sorts of troubles with our budget locally here in Trumbull, if that's combined with the fact the property taxes won't be collected anymore, that's a truly scary, proposition. So I guess just to restate, I think government about providing services. When the money becomes so tight that it frustrates the purpose of government, that should raise some eyebrows. But also this whole thing about elimination of property taxes, that combined with the already tight budgets at our county and in our cities and in our local schools is truly a scary prospect. So we'll just have to see how this continues to play forward. I'm sure there'll be more news stories about this, as the budget process in our county goes forward. So but that's kind of all I had to say about it. Definitely, I would say this would be a developing story as things continue.
I was muted real quick. Agreed, and kind of what I talked about before, and like I said, we talked about a lot earlier in the year. If you're gonna cut things, that kind of sucks. We know that there's government cuts everywhere of how Trump's doing things and giving money to the county, and we have a lot of Republican-controlled commission, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially after the last election. So hopefully these midterm elections help, but we're gonna see that. It not just affect the federal level, but the county level as well, and then it's gonna affect everyone. So, like Tommy's saying, like to me, like the county, our cities, our townships are supposed to provide basic necessities for us. So if they're doing worse at that, that's kind of bad on our end. I don't know if it's how much money businesses are making or how much money we're making, but they should be able to provide these things for us. And we've seen even after this year, the cuts affect many departments. You can go, Tommy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
And a lot of the chaos was offset this year by an increase in sales tax revenue toward the end of the year. So that's going to go away if the economy tanks. And the economy's going to tank because Donald Trump's president. You know what I mean? So
we haven't even talked, Tommy. 50-year mortgage is coming out. Speaking about economy tanking. Get yourself a 50-year mortgage. You won't.
Oh my God. So no, it's going to be hard for the county going forward. It's going to be difficult. And I predicted earlier this year they're going to raise taxes. I still think that is probably in the cards.
Yeah.
At some point.
And who's
going to be the person to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they might not have a choice here. If income tax goes really low, they get rid of property taxes, Trump crashes the economy, they might not have a choice. Like
Oh yeah, if they move property taxes for sure. But hopefully things get better at the
yeah, for
county.
sure.
They don't want to spend that much. Maybe they know the books better than me, but that's kind of how we are everywhere right now. So that's it for me for that one, Tommy.
Yeah,
Not much deep about it.
that's all I had as
To
well.
me, it'll be interesting to see how much they cut. If they're going to cut, 2025, and if they're going to cut more this year, lowball everybody. So be interesting. We'll have to wait and see. We'll probably cover it here again whenever they have their next meeting and actually talk about
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. Yep, that's all I had.
All right. Hope everyone has a great night. What's the temp? 26. It is cold. Stay warm out there. Still a little snowy.
Cool.
Gonna stop here soon. Gonna snow in the morning a little bit. Nothing too bad. Hopefully the plows come out because that's actually a lot of snow on the road. That's no fun. Hope everyone has a good night. Good rest of your week. Thank you for stopping by. Hope you have a great work day tomorrow. A good Veterans Day. Do something for a vet. That'd be great. That's it for me. Good night, Youngstown.
Have a good night, everybody.
Peace.